This is the penitentiary of New Mexico.
57-128.
This maximum security prison near Santa Fe holds almost 800 inmates. It has a tough and violent reputation.
We got a Mayday here in A2. We got a Mayday. Repeat, Mayday.
On February 2nd, 1980, this prison exploded into one of the bloodiest riots in U.S. history.
The building is burning. Over.
The inmates' anger and frustration, fueled by years of overcrowding and poor living conditions, finally boiled over early one Saturday morning. Convicts suddenly overpowered guards, took 12 hostage, and within minutes, over 1,000 prisoners seized complete control of the prison.
Authorities indicated that things were going very badly inside the prison.
The administration running this place here in the institution is abusive towards the people. They have no respect. There's a lack of communication with the inmates.
During the riot's early hours, convicts negotiated with officials using two-way radios taken from the guards.
No hostages have been harmed, and it'll stay that way as long as you people don't make any drastic moves.
We expect to be treated right. There's food that is very poor. There's medication that is not given when it's needed.
You've got no privacy. You cannot sit and write your own letters. You cannot sit down and think for yourself and try and get your act together.
Let's go, move!
As negotiations continued, the rioters released the guard hostages one by one. Many of the guards had been brutally beaten, stabbed, and raped. As the riot continued, the released hostages and escaping prisoners began to tell stories of atrocities taking place inside the prison, of convicts slaughtering other inmates. Negotiations continued into a second day.
We will get the hostages out here, and
the rioters demanded better living conditions. As officials met their terms, the convicts released their last hostage. None of the hostages were killed. The rioters held the prison for 36 hours.
let's go! Let's go! Move it!
On Sunday afternoon,
Move it!
New Mexico State Police SWAT teams, prison guards, and the National Guard retook the penitentiary without firing a shot. Inside, they discovered tortured, mutilated bodies scattered throughout the prison. 33 inmates lay dead. 200 other prisoners had been beaten and raped. 100 were seriously injured. The prison was almost totally destroyed by fire and water. Estimated damages, over $20 million. Hundreds of reporters and television crews were finally allowed inside the walls. Their reports brought the brutality of the riot to public view.
I think that everyone who was connected with that prison at the time of the riot prior to that should be transferred to another governmental job. Just get them out of prison.
Citizen groups demanded answers from New Mexico's governor and the Department of Corrections and immediate reform of the conditions that led to the riot. Advocates of prison reform who had seen firsthand the inhumane conditions in the prison came forward, including attorney Mark Donatelli.
The overcrowding, the brutality inflicted on inmates by staff members, the substandard conditions that existed for at least a decade, the inadequate security system that was in place, substandard food, lack of opportunity for activity, the absence of an incentive-based activity program, Those conditions were in effect for at least 10 years prior to the riot.
This Attorney General's report on the riot also criticized the prison's widespread use of a snitch system. The prison administration encouraged inmates to inform on each other to get better treatment.
It was well known what abuse of the snitch system had been made at that time and what kinds of inmate tension that causes, the types of vengeance that people were likely to witness if inmates had the opportunity to take matters into their own hands. So I think it was easily predictable that certain informants, certain inmates would be killed. I don't think anyone would have predicted that they would be killed in the fashion that they were, or that as many of them would have been killed as were.
2 weeks after the riot, the New Mexico legislature appropriated almost $40 million to fix its long-ignored prison system. And the federal courts ordered sweeping reforms to bring the prison up to national standards. Today, 8 years after the riot, those court-ordered reforms are still closely monitored by the federal government to ensure that inmates' constitutional rights will never again be violated. The court orders include 624 rules that dictate almost every aspect of prison life. Rules for staffing and training. Rules for acceptable disciplinary procedures. Rules for how the security system should operate. To avoid overcrowding, the federal court limits the inmate population. Today, officials encourage more work and recreation to eliminate inmate idleness, a problem before the riot. Prisoners can now choose from more community and educational programs. And facilities were improved to make the prison more livable. But after all these reforms, the Penitentiary of New Mexico is still haunted by the 1980 riot. William Jack Stevens, serving a life sentence for killing another inmate in 1978, participated in the riot.
You guys didn't fulfill your bargain. Nobody.
During the final hours of the riot, Stevens became one of the inmate negotiators. He says he saw many of the inmate killings.
All these people back here.
Once they started killing, then, it just got worse and worse and worse. And finally, there wasn't enough people to kill. Whatever happened to them up on top in their house would be dragged out and tossed over the tier, and they would crash like 3 floors down into the concrete. And there were people down there with knives that when they hit the ground, then would go, and finish them off.
I saw a lot of bodies being brought out. Some were being rolled out with the arms or whatever, following them. They'd throw pieces out.
Marcela Armijo, one of the first women guards in a men's maximum security prison, was off duty the night the riot began. With the inmate families and other off-duty guards, she waited outside the prison during the siege.
At that time, the governor didn't even want us to come in, but I was wishing that he would let us come in because all the commotion would die down one way or another. No matter what it took to take the penitentiary over again, that's what it was going to take. And I wish to God he would have let us come in. I don't think that so many killings would have happened.